My sister's voice was sharp through the phone. You're really going to do this? Just leave? Move across the country like we don't exist? I was standing in my nearly empty apartment, boxes stacked by the door, my life packed into 20 containers ready for the moving truck. I got a job offer in San Francisco, I said. It's a good opportunity. It's selfish, she shot back. Mom needs help. Dad's getting older. I have the kids. You're just going to abandon all of us for some job? I looked around at the apartment I'd lived in for 3 years, the city where I'd struggled and saved and built something from nothing. I'm 28 years old, Rachel. I'm allowed to take a job. Allowed? She repeated. Yeah, you're allowed, but don't expect us to be here when you decide family matters again. She hung up. That was 5 years ago. Last Tuesday, my doorman called up to my penthouse. Ms. Chen, you have visitors. A Rachel Chen? Says she's your sister? With some others? They don't have an appointment, but they're insisting. I looked out my floor-to-ceiling windows at the San Francisco skyline, at the life I'd built in this city, at the view that cost $8 million. Send them up, I said, because I wanted to see their faces when they walked into the home I'd bought in the city I'd been selfish for moving to. When the elevator doors opened into my private foyer, Rachel stepped out first. Then my mother, then my father. Then Rachel's husband Tom and their 2 kids. They stood there staring. At the marble floors, at the art on the walls, at the windows overlooking the bay, at the visible proof that moving away had been the best decision I'd ever made. Let me take you back, because this story isn't about a penthouse or money. It's about being called selfish for choosing yourself, and learning that people who need you to stay small will always call your growth abandonment. If you've ever been guilted for taking opportunities, if you've ever been labeled selfish for setting boundaries, if you've ever succeeded beyond what your family imagined possible, this story is for you. Growing up in Sacramento, I was the reliable one. Rachel was 4 years older, married young, had kids by 23. My parents treated her life choices as my responsibility. When she needed a babysitter, they'd call me. When she needed money, they'd suggest I help. When her car broke down, they'd ask if I could drive her around. I was the backup parent to her kids, the emergency fund for her mistakes, the solution to her poor planning. And I did it, because that's what family does, right? I went to community college, then transferred to state, studied computer science, worked 2 part-time jobs the entire time, lived with my parents to save money, which meant being available for Rachel's constant emergencies. Her kids needed pickup from school because she'd overslept. Could I help? She'd run out of diapers and wouldn't have money until Friday. Could I spot her $40? Tom's hours got cut again. Could they borrow $200 for rent? Every week there was something. And every week I helped because saying no meant being selfish, meant not caring about family, meant being the bad guy. I graduated at 24 with 0 debt and a job at a mid-sized tech company in Sacramento. $48,000 a year. I moved into my own apartment. 1 bedroom, nothing fancy, but mine. Rachel cried when I told her. You're leaving? What about Mom and Dad? What about helping with the kids? You can hire a babysitter, I said. With what money? She asked. The money you save by learning to budget, I suggested. She told our parents I was becoming cold. That success was changing me. They nodded sympathetically. For 4 years I worked that job, got promoted twice, learned to code in 3 new languages, built projects that got noticed, saved aggressively, invested carefully. Lived below my means while Rachel and Tom lived paycheck to paycheck in a house they couldn't afford with kids they couldn't manage, and expectations I was supposed to fund. Every family dinner was passive-aggressive. Must be nice to have so much disposable income. Some of us have responsibilities. Not everyone can be selfish with their money. I'd smile and change the subject. But inside, something was hardening. The job offer came when I was 28. A senior developer position at a major tech company in San Francisco. Base salary of $120,000 plus stock options that could be worth significantly more if the company continued growing. It was everything I'd worked for. A chance to work on projects that mattered, building products used by millions, with people who were brilliant, who challenged each other, who pushed boundaries. In a city that was alive with possibility, with innovation, with people who'd moved there for the same reasons I wanted to. I'd be leaving Sacramento, leaving my family, leaving the role of eternal backup support for Rachel's life. Leaving the guilt trips and the expectations and the assumption that my money was communal property. I accepted immediately, didn't even negotiate, just said yes before they could change their minds. The fallout was nuclear. My mother cried, real tears, the kind designed to make me feel guilty. How can you leave? We're getting older. We need you here. For what? I asked. You're 62 and healthy. You don't need me. What about Rachel? My father said. She needs help with the kids. She has a husband, I said. And she's 32 years old. She can figure it out. Rachel called me selfish, said I was abandoning the family. Her kids asked why Auntie was leaving. She told them I cared more about money than them. My parents suggested I turn down the offer, stay local. They'd help me find something comparable nearby. There was nothing comparable. Not in Sacramento. Not for my career. I moved in August. Drove my packed car 8 hours north to San Francisco. Rented a small apartment in the Sunset District, far from downtown but affordable. Started the new job. The first month was overwhelming. The work was harder. The people were smarter. The pace was relentless. I worked 12-hour days learning systems, proving myself, earning my place. My family called once. Rachel, to tell me that Mom's birthday was coming up, and since I'd abandoned them, the least I could do was send money for a nice gift. I sent flowers instead. San Francisco changed me, not in the way Rachel said, not cold or selfish, but clear, focused. I saw what was possible when you weren't constantly putting out other people's fires, when your money was yours to invest and grow, when your time was yours to develop skills. I thrived, got promoted within a year, then again. Stock options started vesting. I was making real money, not Sacramento money, San Francisco tech money. I bought my first property at 29. A small condo in the Mission, investment property, rented it out for passive income. My family barely called anymore. I'd text on holidays. They'd respond briefly. Rachel posted on Facebook about how hard it was being a single parent. Tom was there but apparently didn't count. She'd hint about money struggles, about bills piling up. Friends would comment sympathetically. Nobody mentioned that she'd made choices that led to this, that having 3 kids with no savings and an unstable income wasn't something that just happened. It was a consequence of decisions. I dated someone for a while, Marcus, product manager at another tech company. He met my family once when we visited Sacramento for Christmas. The dinner was tense. Rachel made comments about people who prioritize careers over family. My mother asked when I'd move back home, settle down, have kids. Like my life in San Francisco wasn't real. Like it was just a phase before I returned to my proper role as Rachel's support system. Marcus was quiet on the drive back to the city. Finally said, "Your family treats you like a resource, not a person." He wasn't wrong. By 31, I was a lead developer. Stock options from 3 years of vesting were worth substantial money. I sold some, kept some, used the cash to buy a second property. By 32, I was making $250,000 a year in salary and stock. I paid off my car, maxed out my retirement accounts, invested aggressively. I wasn't flashy, didn't buy designer clothes or expensive dinners. I built wealth quietly. Most of my friends didn't know how much I made. My family certainly didn't. The penthouse came up when I was 33. New development in Sohama. Floor-to-ceiling windows, 3 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, private elevator, rooftop access. 8 million. It was absurd. I could afford it, but barely. Would stretch my finances. But I'd been in San Francisco 5 years, and I wanted something that was mine. Something permanent. Something that announced I was here to stay. I made an offer. It was accepted. I closed in 30 days. Moving day, I posted a single photo on Instagram, the view from my living room at sunset. Didn't caption it, didn't tag the location, just the view. My colleague commented, "Congrats on the new place." Someone else asked, "Is this SF?" I liked the comments but didn't respond. Within an hour, Rachel had texted, "Did you buy a house?" I said yes. "Must be nice." I didn't respond. My mother called that night. "Rachel says you bought a very expensive place." "I bought a penthouse," I said. "A what?" "A penthouse. Top floor. Downtown San Francisco." Silence. Then, "That must have cost a fortune." "It did." More silence. "Well, congratulations. I hope you're happy there." The word happy sounded like an accusation. For 2 years, I lived in that penthouse alone, furnished it slowly with pieces I loved, hosted dinner parties with friends, watched the sunset every evening from my living room. Worked hard, saved harder, kept building. Rachel got divorced. Tom moved out. She kept the house. Could barely afford it. Posted on Facebook asking for prayers and support. I didn't comment. My mother called asking if I could help Rachel with her mortgage for a few months, just until she got on her feet. I said no. "She's your sister," my mother said. "And she's an adult who made choices," I said. "I'm not responsible for her mortgage." "You have money," she said. Like that was a reason. Like having money obligated me to fund other people's decisions. "I worked for my money," I said. "Rachel can work for hers." My mother called me cold and hung up. Then last Tuesday, 5 years after I'd moved away, 5 years of minimal contact and maximum judgment. The doorman called. My family was downstairs, all of them, asking to come up. I was tempted to say no, to tell the doorman they weren't on the approved list, to send them away. But curiosity won. I wanted to see this, wanted to see them face to face with the life I'd built after leaving. So I told him to send them up. The elevator opened directly into my private foyer. Not a hallway with multiple apartments. Just mine. Private elevator. Private entrance. They stepped out and stopped. Just stopped and stared. The space alone was bigger than Rachel's living room back in Sacramento. Marble floors imported from Italy that cost more than her car. A console table I'd bought at an estate sale, actual antique, worth more than she probably imagined. Art on the walls that I'd bought at galleries downtown, pieces by emerging artists who were now getting recognition. Through the foyer, they could see into the main living area. The windows, floor to ceiling, spanning the entire wall. The view of the bay, the bridge in the distance, the city spread out below like a promise kept. The furniture, carefully curated over 2 years, the sectional sofa in cream linen, the coffee table made from reclaimed wood and steel, the piano in the corner, a baby grand I'd bought last year and was learning to play, taking lessons every Wednesday evening, the evidence of a life built without them, of money spent on beauty instead of bailouts. Rachel's mouth was open. My mother looked pale, her hand on her chest like she might need to sit down. My father couldn't stop staring at the windows, at the view that represented everything I'd chosen over them. The kids, oblivious to the tension, ran immediately to look outside. "Auntie lives here?" the oldest asked, pressing his hands against the glass. "This is so cool. You can see everything." "What are you doing here?" I asked. Rachel found her voice first. "We were in the city. Thought we'd stop by. We've never seen your place." "You drove 8 hours without calling first?" She looked uncomfortable. "We wanted to surprise you." "Why?" She exchanged a glance with my mother. There it was. They wanted something. "Can we sit down?" Rachel asked. I gestured to the living room. They filed in, sitting carefully on my couch like they might break it. The kids were still at the windows, noses pressed to the glass. Tom looked around with an expression I couldn't read. Anger, maybe? Or shame? "This place must have cost a fortune," my father finally said. "8 million, I said. No point being coy. Their faces confirmed they'd had no idea. $8 million? Rachel repeated. "How do you have $8 million? "I don't anymore," I said. "I spent it on this penthouse. But I had it because I worked hard, saved aggressively, invested wisely, made good decisions and didn't subsidize other people's bad ones." The silence was heavy. "We're in trouble," Rachel said finally. "I lost the house. Foreclosure. We've been staying with Mom and Dad, but it's cramped. We need a place to stay. Just for a while. Until I find something." I looked at her. At my mother who'd called me selfish for moving. At my father who'd said I was abandoning them. At Rachel who'd labeled me cold for not funding her life. "No," I said. "What?" Rachel's voice went up. "You have 3 bedrooms. We saw them on our way in. We could stay in one. The kids could share. Just a few months." "No," I repeated. "We're family," my mother said. "You expect us to be homeless?" Rachel added, her voice getting shrill. "You expect me to house 4 people indefinitely because you lost your house to foreclosure?" I asked. "That's not helping. That's enabling." "Enabling?" Rachel stood up. "I'm your sister. I need help. You've needed help for 10 years. At what point do you help yourself?" "I have kids," she said. Like that trumped everything. "You chose to have kids," I said. "You chose to stay married to someone with an unstable income. You chose to buy a house you couldn't afford. You chose to live beyond your means. Those were your choices, not mine." "So you'll just watch us struggle?" my mother asked. "You'll sit in your $8 million penthouse while your sister and her children are homeless?" "You're not homeless," I said. "You're staying with Mom and Dad. In the house I grew up in. It's cramped, but functional. You'll figure it out." Rachel's face was red. "You've changed. You used to care about family." "I do care about family," I said. "That's why I'm not letting you move in here and destroy your own motivation to fix your situation. You need to get a job. A real full-time job. Not part-time retail. You need to budget. You need to learn to live within your means. None of that happens if I give you a free place to stay in San Francisco." "We're not a charity case," Tom said. First thing he'd said. "Then don't ask for charity," I said. "Get jobs, both of you. Find an affordable place. Rebuild. Like I did when I moved here with no safety net and no family support." "You didn't have kids," Rachel said. "Because I knew I couldn't afford them," I said. "That was a choice I made. You made different choices. Own them." "I can't believe this," my mother said. We raised you better than this. You raised me to believe family means unlimited access to my resources, I said. That's not love. That's exploitation. You called me selfish for moving here, for building this life, for choosing myself. And now you show up asking me to rescue Rachel from her own decisions. That's not happening. So that's it? Rachel asked. You're kicking us out? You were never in, I said. You showed up unannounced expecting to stay. I'm saying no. That's not kicking you out. That's setting a boundary. She grabbed her kids. Come on, we're leaving. They filed back toward the elevator. My parents followed. At the door, my father turned. Your mother is right. We did raise you better. You've become exactly what Rachel said. Cold. Selfish. More worried about money than people. I'm worried about people learning to take care of themselves, I said. There's a difference. The elevator doors closed. They were gone. I stood in my empty penthouse and felt nothing. No guilt. No regret. Just a quiet certainty that I'd made the right choice. They'd driven 8 hours to ask me to house them. Not to see me. Not to apologize for calling me selfish. Not to acknowledge that maybe I'd been right to move. But to use me. Again. Like they'd used me for years before I left. And I'd said no. Finally, clearly, permanently. Rachel posted on Facebook that night. A vague post about family disappointments, about people who forget where they came from, about siblings who care more about penthouses than people. Her friends commented sympathetically. Nobody asked why she'd lost her house. Nobody mentioned that driving 8 hours to ask someone for a place to stay unannounced was entitled. They just validated her victim narrative. I didn't comment. Didn't engage. Just blocked her and moved on. My mother called a week later. Rachel is very hurt. Rachel is an adult who needs to solve her own problems, I said. You have all this space, she said. All this money. You could help. I could, I agreed. But I won't, because helping Rachel means enabling her pattern of making bad decisions and expecting bailouts. I'm done being her safety net. When did you become so hard? She asked. When I realized being soft meant being used, I said. She hung up. I haven't heard from any of them since. I'm 35 now. Still in my penthouse. Still working in tech. Still building wealth. Made VP last year. Salary plus stock now puts me well over $400,000 annually. I travel. I invest. I live well. I have friends who are actual friends, not people who see me as a resource. I date someone who respects my boundaries and my choices. I built a life that would have been impossible if I'd stayed. If I'd let guilt trap me in Sacramento, funding Rachel's choices and putting my own dreams on hold. Do I miss my family? Sometimes. I miss the idea of family, the thing families are supposed to be. Supportive, loving, proud. But I don't miss my actual family, the people who called me selfish for growing, who expected me to stay small so they could borrow big, who showed up at my door not to celebrate my success, but to exploit it. That's not family. That's just people who share DNA and expect it to obligate you forever. The penthouse wasn't about showing off. It was about choosing myself. About saying I deserve beauty and comfort and success as much as anyone else. That my needs matter as much as Rachel's. That building wealth isn't selfish, it's smart. That moving away from people who only valued you for what you could give them isn't abandonment, it's survival. They showed up at my $8 million penthouse and proved exactly why I was right to move 380 miles away. If you've ever been called selfish for choosing your own future, this is for you. If you've ever been guilted for moving away from family who only saw you as a resource, This is for you. If you've ever built something beautiful and had people ask what they could take from it instead of celebrating what you achieved, this is for you. You don't owe anyone access to your success just because they're related to you. You don't owe anyone a home in the life you built specifically by getting away from them. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is let people face their consequences without cushioning the fall. Tell me in the comments, have you ever had family show up expecting help after calling you selfish for setting boundaries? Did you help them or hold firm? I read every story. And if you want more stories about people who chose themselves and never looked back, subscribe. Sometimes the best view isn't from a penthouse. It's the view of a life you built by refusing to make yourself smaller for someone else's comfort.